All right, last week, the Nigerian government approved Siemens pre-engineering contract to commence work on the significant expansion of Nigeria's electricity transmission and distribution network and also generation capacity. The pre-engineering contract forms the initial step in the Presidential Power Initiative, the PPI, formerly the Nigeria Electrification Roadmap outlined by Siemens and the federal government of Nigeria in July of 2019. The PPI project aims to upgrade the electricity network to achieve operational capacity of 25,000 megawatts from the current average of 4,500 through a series of projects spanning 3 phases. Joining me live to discuss this development is the CEO of Siemens Nigeria, Mrs. Onyeche Tifase. Good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us on the Global Business Report. So the federal government tweeted a series of images to illustrate the deal with your firm, one of which was a pre-engineering cost 15.2 million euros and 1.7 billion naira. How much is the total cost of the entire electrification deal, if you can share that with us?
First of all, thank you. It's a pleasure being here today to talk about the project. The project as we have today is a 3-phase project covering expansion of the transmission, distribution, and generation grid. What we also have done with the government is to come up with a plan for initiating pre-engineering works that will drive the 3 phases of the project. So where we are now is a project that costs about 20 billion naira, or 20 million euros in total. And we are at this moment of a 15.2 billion naira and million euros and 1.7 billion naira in total is what constitutes the initial phase of the pre-engineering project. The project eventually will transition into a first phase that costs about 2.2 billion euros. But at this moment in time, we're entering into the initial phases of the project that cost only about 1.5 billion, 1.7 billion naira and 15.2 million euros in total.
Thank you so much for that. Now, beyond the financing, now Nigeria's ability to maintain infrastructure is mixed at best. Does that worry you with respect to what you're going to be building and putting forward?
We're not worried at all. I think we recognize that this is one of the challenges Nigeria has faced in the past. There have been several plans aimed at enhancing Nigeria's electrification sector. And if we didn't enter into this project with the awareness that that was a risk, I think that would have been foolhardy of us. So we sat with the government and other stakeholders. We understood the challenges as pertain to operation and maintenance of electrification infrastructure. And we've come up with a concept that we believe is very comprehensive. It will utilize local resources, local SMEs. It will also leverage the support of local third-party EPCs that we'll be working with. And the idea is to have trained and certified engineers in country that can service and maintain this equipment. This is high-tech technology we're talking about. It's the best practice solutions we've delivered in other countries worldwide in advanced and developing economies. And the idea is to ensure that there's a steady pipeline of engineers, not just from the transmission and distribution companies, but also from future cadres of employees. So university students as well will be trained on these technologies to ensure that they have the capacity to operate and maintain the equipment effectively.
Fantastic. So that pipeline, though, initially the technical assistance is going to come from you, yes, from your expertise, and then transferred over here, which is going to, for the university students you just mentioned, as far as upskilling. Is that right?
Well, one of the unique value adds on this project is that from the very beginning, our aim is to, first of all, ensure that we have the right technology for the right requirements. A lot of the issues in the past is that technology has been oversized or not properly specified for the requirements in the network. So we are doing an extensive study of the grid to ensure that the gaps as we have today are properly identified and effectively addressed. Secondly, at the same time doing that, we're ensuring that there's a training concept in place. So training will be done here in Nigeria or in our factories abroad or our training schools to ensure that there's available sufficient capacity in country, either within the DISCOs or TCN or even with third parties, contractors, to ensure that they're able to provide the required services. Siemens will not be shipping loads of its own hired hands to come to Nigeria to do the work that Nigerians are capable of doing. In that sense, we ensure that there's local content, there's value add, and there's sustainability. There'll be people available here in country to maintain this equipment and to ensure that it stands the test of time and that we recover the return on investment.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, great. So local context is essentially part of the plan here. Will you be? You've mentioned the discos already and the value chain. So I imagine that you've carried out due diligence across the value chain before the work commences. Yes.
We've done extensive due diligence across the value chain. Yes, from transmission to distribution, especially because that's our initial focus. Today, Nigeria has 13 to 14 gigawatts of installed capacity. However, only about 7 to 8 gigawatts of that capacity is operational. And our aim is to ensure that we are achieving in excess of the peak that was achieved just a couple of months ago by about 5.3 gigawatts to ensure we can evacuate that 7 to 8 gigawatts that is available today effectively. And we've done a due diligence to ensure we know where the hotspots are. We know what has to be done within each DISCO and within the transmission network. However, every DISCO and even TCN have their own performance improvement plans. They have their extensive long-term plans, and we need to align what we're doing to those plans. Those plans have developed over time, and just end of last year, the DISCOs reissued the final version of their performance improvement plan. So it's up to us to take those plans and to draw out a longer-term initiative to ensure the evacuation of 25 gigawatts. But in the short term, also identify the necessary measures. And we've done this already with the DISCOs, but again, in the initial stages, we'll make sure that all those recommendations are still relevant and that we're not over-specifying or underestimating the work that is ahead of us.
That's great. Thank you so much for that answer. So the existing liquidity challenges that exist, the existing liquidity challenges in the value chain, that's not, to put it this way, that's not really your problem, right? You have an existing agreement with the federal government, so there's no chance of, with what you discover from your due diligence, with what we know already are the challenges, there's no chance of those challenges causing a hitch in the agreement that you have with the federal government to push this forward.
First of all, I want to commend the federal government, excuse me, on this initiative. They have taken on the chief role as a chief stakeholder responsible for resolving Nigeria's power deficit. We know the private sector is involved because the Nigeria power sector was privatized in 2013. So generation and distribution are already privatized. However, distribution remains the biggest challenge in that value chain. And the government have said they will come in and provide sovereign guarantees to back further investments in the grid, in upgrading the grid. So what we've done is agreed with the government on how we can unlock export credit financing from a German ECA, Euler Hermes, by them providing the necessary backing, and that will come in the form of a sovereign guarantee. With this, we are sure the financing will be available for the project, and with this, we're sure that the commercial funds required to enter into the 3 phases I described will be available over time.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, that being said, how confident are you of being able to provide or supply that 25,000 megawatts by 2025?
The decision on 25 gigawatts or 25,000 megawatts was made last year when we signed the implementation agreement with the government on July 22nd, 2019. And that intention still remains fixed. What we are sure of is that Nigeria really requires even beyond 25 gigawatts. So for some people, 25 gigawatts isn't an ambitious enough target. However, by targeting 25 gigawatts, we enable the market to start to develop. We resolve the initial challenges in the grid. We ensure that transmission and distribution infrastructure are available and working sufficiently to evacuate even more power. And 25 gigawatts is achievable. We've delivered similar projects in Egypt, where we delivered about 14.4 gigawatts. That's 14,400 megawatts of electricity in 27 and a half months. And this was a record for any country in the electrification space. We're sure we can do the same in Nigeria. We just need commitment and collaboration with all key stakeholders, and that we've already achieved. We're sure that the DISCOs are committed to this plan. Transmission Company of Nigeria has been very heavily involved. The Ministry of Power has been a very key stakeholder, and this has also been driven from the top levels of government. The Ministry of Finance as well has been taking the necessary steps to make sure this project can kick off. And as you know, this is called the Presidential Power Initiative. So the project has the backing of the president himself. And with that, we're sure that we can achieve the targets that I've set out.
Okay, so that should give Nigerians that are watching this now a measure of confidence. You mentioned Egypt. I also noticed you signed a similar electrification deal with Iraq last year. Is this part of your services for developing countries in emerging markets?
First of all, Siemens' intention is to be a trusted partner to the nations where it resides. So we see our value as in closing electrification gaps across generation, transmission, and distribution. Also being able to automate and protect grids worldwide. And this has been our intention, and we've been delivering solutions along this value chain for over a century. However, we're recognizing that as time goes on, the deficits in power remain in developing countries like Nigeria, Iraq, Egypt. And our intention is to partner with those governments to address their significant power deficits. So it's not by chance that we've done this in Egypt and that we're now translating the same successes to other countries because we have the unique capacity to be able to support governments across the entire grid, and we're also able to unlock ECA financing. So the best practice we're bringing for countries like Iraq and Egypt is not that only training local employees, bringing in the best equipment available, but also supporting them to enable growth in other sectors. So electricity triggers growth and it triggers stability of the economy. And we know it also encourages foreign direct investment. There's evidence of that in Egypt after completing our project. And we are sure that as we do this in Nigeria, the same will be achieved. So the value for these governments we're doing this in is enables them to attract investment and drive growth. And Siemens is also able to support the solutions in other sectors. We have Siemens Mobility that provides.
Mrs. Tifase, thank you so much. We've actually run out of time. I had another question for you, but I appreciate your time. The Siemens Nigeria CEO, Onyeche Tifase, taking us through the electrification deal with the government of Nigeria.